Winter, 1887, western Wyoming. Snow blanketed the land like silence made solid. The wind screamed down from the mountains, carrying a sharpness that sliced through wool and leather alike. Ash Hollow was quiet under the storm's weight, and the Blackwood homestead, small, worn, but standing firm, sat hunched against the cold. Levi Blackwood, a wide-shouldered and weathered man of 35, trudged through knee-deep snow toward the old barn with his 6-year-old son, Ben, close behind. "Stay close," he said, his voice low and steady. Ben nodded, clutching his small coat tighter. The barn loomed ahead, crooked and half-sunk into drifts. No one had used it in years, not since the fever took Mary, Levi's wife, and left silence in her place. They were checking the structure in case the coming blizzard worsened. As they neared, a faint sound caught Levi's ear, soft, like shuffling straw. He held out an arm, stopping Ben. Another sound, this time clearer, a small rustle. Inside, Levi reached for the handle. Slowly, the old door groaned open. The cold inside bit even sharper than outside, the air smelling of damp wood and rusted iron. A weak shaft of grey light filtered through a broken slat. Then he saw her. In the far corner, curled behind a bale of old hay, sat a little Apache girl, no more than 3 years old. Her cheeks were flushed raw from the cold, her dress thin and torn. Dirt streaked her face, and her small hands gripped a short stick like a weapon. Levi dropped to one knee. The girl flinched and raised the stick. Ben gasped, but Levi held up a hand to silence him. The child's eyes were wide and wild, not with confusion, but with memory. She had seen fear before. Then her voice, a rasp, barely more than a whisper, said, "Don't hit me. Mama's dying outside." Levi's heart clenched. This wasn't a runaway, this was something far crueler. He slowly raised both hands. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. "I'm here to help." "We'll find your mama." She didn't answer, but her arms dropped a little. The stick lowered. Only then did Levi crawl forward slowly. He reached her side, pulled the wool scarf from his own neck, and wrapped it around her shoulders. She trembled but didn't pull away. Ben stood behind, silent, eyes wide. "What's your name?" Levi asked. She looked at him. "Tala," she whispered. Levi glanced at Ben, then back to the barn's broken door where the wind howled louder. "Let's go find your mama, Tala." He lifted her gently into his arms. She didn't resist. Isaac stepped out into the storm with Tala wrapped tight in his coat. The snow whipped at his face as he squinted into the pale blur, scanning the ground. He found small, uneven footprints staggering north, away from the barn. "Can you show me?" he asked gently. The girl raised a weak arm, pointing ahead. Levi pushed forward, boots crunching through frost, Ben following close behind. Then he saw it, a shape barely more than a lump, half buried behind a snow-laden pine. It was a woman, curled on her side, her coat thin and soaked through. One sleeve had fallen back, revealing an old, infected gash on her shoulder. Her lips were blue, her skin deathly pale. Tala squirmed in his arms, suddenly frantic. "Mama," she cried out. "Mama, wake up!" Levi dropped to his knees, setting Tala gently beside her mother. He pressed his fingers to the woman's neck and found a faint pulse. A thin cloud of breath escaped her lips. "She's alive," he whispered. Without wasting another second, he slid his arms beneath her and lifted her, feeling how light she was. "Ben," he said. "Take Tala. Walk slow. Stay close." Ben nodded and held out his arms. Tala hesitated but let him carry her. Levi began the slow march back through the snow toward the cabin, its chimney coughing out smoke from the fire he'd left burning. Inside, the warmth felt like another world. He laid the woman gently on the bed near the hearth. Ben helped Tala out of her soaked clothes, wrapping her in fresh blankets. Levi peeled away the woman's damp coat, careful not to touch the wound. "Get more blankets," he told Ben. As the boy ran to fetch them, Levi looked down at the woman. Her face, young, perhaps in her late 20s, was gaunt. Her hair was tangled, but he could see a quiet beauty beneath the exhaustion. "Who are you?" he murmured. For 2 full days, the woman drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring nonsense in her fevered dreams while her body thrashed beneath the quilts. Levi kept a cool cloth on her brow and fed her warm broth a spoonful at a time. He changed the dressing on her wound, applying a paste of crushed pine bark and sage that smelled sharp and earthy. Ben watched from a corner, quiet as a mouse. Tala sat next to him, the two of them clutching wooden toys Levi had carved years ago. "She's real sick," Ben whispered. Tala nodded. "But she's strong." They played in the afternoons, stacking blocks and whispering stories. Tala did not speak much, but when she did, her voice was brighter, safer. By the 3rd day, the woman stirred for longer. The first time she opened her eyes and saw Levi beside her, she flinched, her arms moving as if to shield herself. Levi backed up immediately, hands open, his voice low. "You're safe," he said. "No one here will hurt you." Her gaze darted to the corner where Tala was giggling as Ben handed her a tiny carved horse. The woman relaxed slightly. She blinked, her lips dry, and croaked, "My daughter, she's fine," Levi replied. "Warm, fed. She hasn't left your side until today." The woman's head sank back into the pillow. "Thank you," she whispered, and her eyes closed again. Later that night, as Levi sat in the rocking chair by the hearth mending a torn coat, she stirred again. "I do not know your name," she rasped. He glanced up. "Levi Blackwood." "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood." "No need for thanks. Just rest." The following morning, Tala tugged the woman's sleeve and held out a piece of rough, wrinkled paper drawn with charcoal from the firewood bin. On it were 4 stick figures, a tall man, a woman with long hair, and 2 children, standing before a square house with smoke curling from its chimney. "That's you and me and Mama, and the man who gives us soup," Tala explained. The woman blinked down at the drawing, her lip trembling. "I drew us by the fire," Tala added proudly, "because the fire means we don't have to run." The woman clutched the paper to her chest as tears slipped silently down her cheeks. It was the first time she had cried since fleeing into the snow. That evening, Ben approached her awkwardly. "Can I ask something?" he ventured. "Are you going to stay? Like, forever stay?" The woman's breath hitched. She looked at Levi across the room, his back turned as he adjusted the kettle, then down at Ben's hopeful face. She could not answer yet, but she reached out and touched his shoulder, and the boy smiled. Outside, the snow finally slowed. Inside, laughter began to return. The woman, who they learned was named Anya, stood more steadily each day, her color brightening and her voice growing stronger. She never strayed far from the fire or from her daughter, but she no longer flinched when Levi came near. Sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, she watched him move through the house, silent, steady, without expectation. She had known men who spoke too much, shouted more, and struck hardest when silent. But Levi's quiet made space for healing. He never asked about her past, never questioned her fear. Instead, he offered what she had not known she needed, safety, not through words, but through presence. For the first time in her long, weary memory, Anya did not feel like running. One night, as the fire crackled low, Anya sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a tin mug of cold tea. Levi stood nearby, polishing an old horseshoe. "He used to lock us in the cellar," she said, her voice breaking the silence. Said the dark was the only place a woman learned respect. Levi didn't move, he waited. He would starve Tala if I talked back. One cry from her, and I'd lose her forever. So I learned to take it. Learned not to cry. She looked up, her eyes dry. But I still bled. Slowly, she stood and pulled aside her blouse just enough to show him red, raw ridges like cruel handwriting carved across her skin. Levi's hands clenched around the horseshoe. Anya let the fabric fall back into place. "I used to pray someone would kill him. Then I prayed God would make me strong enough to do it myself." She reached into her apron pocket, pulled out a torn and singed photograph of herself beside a man with dark, heavy eyes, and fed it to the fire. The flames caught the edge, curling the paper until it blackened and vanished. Levi watched the last ember fall. "If he comes here," he spoke, low and steady, "he'll find no welcome and no way out." Anya turned, her face pale but calm. "I don't want to be someone to protect, Levi. I don't want to be broken anymore." Levi shook his head. "You're not. You walked through snow carrying a child and wounds that should have dropped any man. You kept her warm while starving yourself. That's not weakness. That's grit." He stepped closer, but not too close. "But no one should have to be strong alone." Not always. There was silence again, but this time it felt less sharp, more honest. After a while, Anya looked toward the fire and asked softly, "Your wife, what happened?" Levi's gaze dropped, his voice rough when he spoke. "Tuberculosis. Took her slow. She was just 28. I held her hand at the end. Noah was only 4. He cried for weeks after. Then he stopped. That scared me more." He looked up at her. "I know what it's like to feel helpless." Their eyes met, two people scraped raw by the world but still standing. "Thank you," Anya whispered. "Not just for saving me, but for not treating me like I'm broken glass." "I don't see glass," Levi said. "I see steel for the first time." She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. The snow began to melt, leaving muddy trails around the barn. Spring was still a promise, but the days were longer. Anya stood on the porch, flour dusting her dress, a tray of dough ready for baking. The cabin smelled of yeast and firewood. Later, she walked with Levi into town for the first time. Ash Hollow was small, but eyes carried far. Whispers followed them. A man muttered something as they passed the saloon, and a woman from the church crossed the street to avoid them, but Anya kept her chin high. In the general store, the clerk raised an eyebrow. "You're staying with Blackwood?" "Yes," she replied simply, holding his gaze until he looked away. On the walk back, Levi said nothing, but she saw the way his jaw was tight, his fists clenched inside his coat pockets. "I'm not ashamed," she said. He looked at her then. "I know. I just hate that you have to prove anything to anyone." That night, Anya returned to the cabin to find the old storeroom cleared. The window was fixed, a small rug lay by the bed, and a new, hand-stitched quilt covered it. On a newly hung shelf sat a tiny wooden bird carved from pine. Levi came up behind her. "It's not much," he said, "but I thought maybe you and Tala should have a space that's yours." She turned to him, her eyes glassy. "Thank you. You didn't have to." "I know," he said, "but I wanted to." A few days later, while Anya hung laundry, Ben approached her, his arms folded in deep thought. "My mama," he said finally, "she used to sing when she baked." "You sing, too?" Anya paused, unsure what to say. "I think she would have liked you," he added, then leaned in and wrapped his arms around her waist. Anya knelt, hugging him back. "That means more than you know," she whispered. That evening, while the children played by the fireplace, Anya sat next to Levi at the table. She watched him carve something small from a block of wood, then reached out and laid her hand gently over his. He looked up, surprised. "I don't know if I deserve any of this," she said softly. "This peace, this kindness." Levi turned his hand over, letting their fingers intertwine. "You don't have to earn safety," he said. "You just need to believe you're allowed to have it." He squeezed her hand once. "I don't trust easy," he said. "But I see the fight in you, Anya." "That's what I trust." In the silence that followed, their hands remained together. For the first time in years, happiness didn't feel like a dream. It felt real. The morning began like any other until the children's laughter was shattered by silence. Ben came running, panting and wide-eyed. "Mama, a man." He took Tala. He pulled her onto a wagon and rode off. Anya dropped the bowl she was holding as Levi burst from the barn. "Which way?" Ben pointed toward the ridge. He had a black horse. Levi was already moving, strapping on his gun. Anya knelt to grab her coat but spotted a piece of parchment pinned to a post with a knife. The handwriting was sharp and angry. "You want the girl? Come alone, Anya, or she dies like her mother should have." Fire replaced fear in her chest. I'm going, she said. Levi took the note and crumpled it slowly. You're not going alone, I have to. If he sees you, he'll see a man who's not afraid of him. You're not alone anymore, Anya, Levi's voice cut through her panic. That night, they rode into the trees, the moon casting long shadows through the pines. In a clearing, they saw the glow of a fire. Marcus Thorne stood by it, a bottle in one hand, a revolver in the other. Tala sat on the ground beside him, arms tied, cheeks streaked with tears. You came, Marcus slurred. And you brought your hero, Levi stepped forward. Let her go, Marcus laughed. Not till I get what's mine. You never owned her, Anya said coldly. You never owned any of us. Marcus turned the gun on Tala. Don't test me. Levi raised his rifle. You shoot, you die. But Marcus was wild, his eyes glassy. You think she loves you? She's mine. In a split second, he aimed at Anya. Tala screamed. Anya lunged, shielding her daughter just as the gun fired. The world exploded in noise. Levi's rifle cracked a breath later, and Marcus went down, his leg shattered. Anya crumpled to the ground, blood soaking her sleeve. Tala cried out, crawling to her. Mama, no. Levi rushed forward, kicking the gun away from Marcus's reach, then tied the man's hands with his belt. Anya groaned but opened her eyes. It's just the shoulder, she gasped. I'm okay. Levi ripped fabric to press against the wound. Stay with me. A lantern appeared through the trees. Sheriff Barnes and 2 deputies rode in, drawn by the gunfire. Barnes saw Marcus writhing on the ground and Anya bleeding in the snow. You've got explaining to do, Blackwood, he said. Levi stood up slowly. This man kidnapped a child and shot her mother. He got the justice he deserved. Anya nodded weakly. He's telling the truth. The sheriff spat to the side. Good. I'm tired of men like him. As the deputies hauled Marcus away, Anya whispered, you didn't have to come. He looked down at her, his voice low. I lost one family already. I'm not losing another. The shadows that had hunted Anya for years were finally left behind. 3 days later, the storm had passed. Sunlight spilled through the windows of the Granger homestead. Anya lay in bed, her arm in a sling. Ben brought her a bowl of broth. Pa says that's better till your belly's stronger. Tala was curled beside her. Across the room, Levi sat by the fire, whittling. You don't have to do all this, Anya said softly. He looked up, his eyes tired but kind. I know, but I want to. A week later, Anya stood on the porch of Ash Hollow's general store. Voices hushed as she entered. Behind the counter, Mrs. Jennings studied her for a long moment, then stepped out and handed Tala a gingerbread man. She's got your eyes, Mrs. Jennings said. And your fire, I think. Anya smiled, a soft, uncertain thing. Outside, other voices followed. Good to see you out, miss. We've been praying for you. Ash Hollow was still a rough town, but it was no longer a place she had to run from. It was becoming home. Spring crept slowly into Wyoming. At the Blackwood homestead, winter's hush gave way to laughter. Ben galloped across the yard on a stick horse, and Tala chased behind him. On the porch, Anya mended a shirt, a quiet smile on her lips. Levi worked at the forge, and when he glanced toward the porch, their eyes met. No words were needed. That evening, the cabin's table was set with care. The smell of fresh bread mingled with stew. After dinner, as the fire crackled low, Anya handed Levi a folded letter. I wrote to my sister, she said. Will you read it? He opened it. Her handwriting was small but sure. Dear Clara, it's been too long. But for the first time in years, I'm not afraid to close my eyes because when I open them, someone is here, waiting. This place, it's not just safe. It's home. Levi looked up, his gaze steady. I never thought I'd get to send a letter like that, she said quietly. He reached across the table and took her hand. Later, Catherine sat beside Levi, her head on his shoulder, a wool blanket wrapped around them. In front of the fire, Ben and Tala had fallen asleep, curled together. I ran for so long, she whispered. I thought I'd never stop. I lost my heart long ago, he murmured. Buried it with her, I think. But I found it again in that barn with you and a little girl braver than most men I've known. They sat in quiet, letting the fire speak. Outside, the land still healed. But inside that small wooden cabin, for hearts had already begun to bloom. He found a little girl alone in the barn. But what he really found was a reason to believe in love again.